In a week and 2 days from now, Newbie and I will be done discussing futures, and we can finally be watching some real regular season NFL football. But for our last future show, Newbie and I decided to put our money where our mouths are and put together parlays of every single division winner in the NFL. So welcome into GoldSheet TV. I am Eric Pauly with my co-host Dan Alexander at Newbie Talks on Twitter. And I think we just get right into it, Newbie. Let's look at what we have both decided our winners of every division in the NFL is going to be. For the AFC, I'm rocking with the Buffalo Bills, the Cleveland Browns, the Tennessee Titans, and the Kansas City Chiefs. For the AFC, you're rocking with the New York Jets, Baltimore Ravens, Tennessee Titans, and Kansas City Chiefs. So we have a little bit of discrepancy there in the AFC East and AFC North. Newbie, we did a whole show on why we feel like the Buffalo Bills are overrated and why I feel like the Baltimore Ravens are overrated. Give me one last chance to convince me why one of these two teams are going to be winning the division over the Bills and the Browns.
Yeah, I think too. You know, we should pause and say we never suggest that you place 8-leg parlays as a part of your portfolio. We're doing it for fun. We got something to go, but we placed it ourselves. So who knows if one of these hits? Eric and I probably aren't going to be on the show anymore because we're going to be on the way to Waikiki to celebrate. But man, I will say I want to be anti-Jets. You know what I mean? Like I want to be with all the sharps. I want to, fade a team that I think has lofty expectations, and I think a little too lofty of expectations. But the proof could be in the pudding. I mean, really, if you look at what this team has struggled with as far as the Jets go, it really has been finding a steady hand under center. Now, I'm not a big Robert Saleh guy, but that's why I'm glad that maybe Aaron Rodgers can really take over the hand on that offense and kind of be the quarterback of that offense. But, if Saleh does what he always does best, and that's have a stout defense, I don't see how this team can't be markedly better. And if you go back and check out our AFC East preview, this team has gotten better roster-wise. And, you also add in Dalvin Cook. How much does he play into the situation? But he has a potential to be a game-breaking guy alongside Breece Hall, who, if his ACL heals very well, you have lightning and thunder in that backfield that arguably the best backfield in football if both of those guys are healthy. So, I don't know. I look at that Jets. I look at that plus 270. And while again, I'm not a huge Jets lover. I just think that there could be enough spark with that team and having some expectations. Whereas you look at the case of the Lions, where I think it's going to hurt them having lofty expectations. I think the Jets finally having some wind in their sails for the first time in forever could pay dividends for them. So that's why, I had to go with them to win that division, even though the Bills have been the darlings and really running that division for the past few years.
Yeah, and I totally see where you're coming from. I opted to go with the Buffalo Bills in that scenario because while I do think the New York Jets are a playoff team, I think something that needs to be considered when thinking about the Jets, especially headed toward the postseason, because for starters, this is a team right now that the postseason is not the goal. The Super Bowl is the goal. The postseason, losing in the first round is a bad thing for the Jets. Obviously, it's nice for their fans to finally see some football that's meaningful after, 12 plus years of not seeing that in the months of January, but they have much higher expectations. So I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills here simply because I think they know how to win in the regular season, but I do think that the New York Jets are a wild card team. Now, I'm not going to go into the Browns that I think is going to win the North because we've already talked about that ad nauseum. I also talked about how I think the Titans are going to unseat the Jaguars, and the Jaguars themselves aren't even going to make the postseason. But I'll go first. It'll be my 3 wild card teams locked and loaded for the AFC. So, of course, you see the division winners right there. And again, like Newbie said, we're not saying bet any 8-leg parlays. We are just doing it guns ahead of division winners for fun, so we have something to root for the entire season. And you'll be seeing a couple of those from us throughout the year because while sports betting is serious and winning NFL bets is what we are trying to do at the GoldSheet, you got to have some fun here and there if you have literally $1 to $10 to spare. But digression aside, my wild card teams in no particular order. I have the New York Jets making the postseason. I have the Los Angeles Chargers making the postseason, and I have the Cincinnati Bengals making the postseason. Newbie, you agree, disagree, or what are your 3 AFC postseason teams before we head over to the NFC?
Yeah, the only thing that worries me heading into it, and I think it's more of an early season thing, is and you know, when I sent my list over, I did leave the Bengals off because I think whoever comes out of that AFC North, you know, I think obviously they're going to be a player in the entire playoffs. So, you know, while I currently have down the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Chargers, I could easily interchange one of those. I'm just pretty high on the AFC division with, you know, the Bills, the Dolphins, but Bengals, I feel like they're kind of off my radar because of the early season concerns that I have over that Joe Burrow injury. If he's fine and everything's, you know, all copacetic, that could also be a team that could challenge for making it to the Super Bowl. So again, with these early season predictions, so much is some of this recency bias built in to me thinking about Joe Burrow's injury and thinking about how does that play itself out, thinking about that they have a banged up backfield as well. So no, you could easily talk me into the Bengals being a player here, but I'm right there with you. I think the Chargers get in. You know that I'm pretty bullish on the Chargers just as a whole and their potential to be a top team in the AFC. And then I just think with how this division is with the Jets and the Patriots and the Bills and Dolphins, like they're all going to beat up each other. But I think all of them are going to have solid, high-scoring offenses precluding the New England Patriots. I think they're going to have to rely on winning some rock fights, which is why I don't have them as players. But I think also there hasn't been enough talk about the Dolphins this offseason because if Tua stays healthy, and again, I'm not any big Tua guy, but the proof is in the pudding with the wins that they put up when he's under center. So if he stays healthy, they should be scoring points in bunches again. If they can even get 1 or 2 stops, I think they're going to be a pretty solid team as well.
Yeah, a lot to love in the AFC conference, though, obviously now with the season's coming up. So you got to put your final predictions and your money where your mouth is on where we think everybody's going to end up. And some notable teams missing from my perspective. Don't have the Ravens, Jaguars making the playoffs. Don't see Miami making the playoffs. Don't have the Steelers making the playoffs. Don't have Sean Payton and Russell Wilson making the playoffs. And from your perspective, on a similar page. And I could see your concerns with the Bengals. Just again, when that offense is healthy and buzzing, they're as good as anybody. Yeah. But defensively now, losing a lot of their secondary is always going to be tough to overcome, but they're expecting some progression from some of these young players. So our AFC fields are set. Let's go to the NFC where we just straight up agree on how we think the NFC is going to shake out. Both of us, Birds winning the East, Packers winning the North, Saints winning the South, and Niners winning the West. That is 3 of the 4 chalky teams to win the divisions, with the Packers being the one team that is it's projected to finish last in the division. We have absolutely defined those expectations. Newbie, any last thoughts on this playoff field this division winner before we talk about the wildcard teams that we think are going to take it in the NFC?
Yeah, and you point out that, you know, we're kind of eating some of that chalk with our division winners, but doesn't the NFC feel like the chalkier conference? Like when I look across the AFC, I could point out way more upsets that could potentially happen than in the NFC. And I think it's probably because there's, you know, some teams in the NFC that you can just write off and say, yeah, you know, they're in the NFL. But I mean, there's an entire division where you make me take the Saints at plus 105 to win the division. And that's because they're the best of a bad bunch there. Who knows how many wins they'll need to get that home. And we both talked about the Saints and their easy schedule. They might have a lot of wins simply because of that easy schedule that they have. So yeah, it seems like, you know, you're just chalking it up, but that's just how this NFC conference feels. I think there's going to be some teams you can pick spots with betting them against the spread. But as far as, you know, the cream rising to the top, I think it's easy to tell what those kind of teams are in the NFC. And of course, Eric, this is all barring injury. That's the ultimate equalizer. Is any of these preseason predictions that you're doing, one injury can completely change the complexion of the entire NFL. It's almost like the wings flapping of a butterfly. But I think just heading in here to the season, NFC conference, it seems like it's pretty easy to tell who the elite teams are and who the okay teams are, and then who the bottom feeders are. I don't think the same could be said in the AFC.
100% agree. And another thing I just want to mention about the NFC, right? So we both have the Niners on the ticket. Obviously means both of the Niners making the postseason. I want to fade the Niners so badly, but I also want to fade the Seahawks. And I obviously can't back the Rams or Cardinals. So that's like a by default. Like I haven't played that straight. I'm assuming you have not played that straight. I am not going to be playing any Niners division straight, especially given the price. But they're a team that maybe the move will be to be fading them week in and week out, or even going on a limb. I haven't looked deeply enough into this market to have like a price, but like Niners round of elimination, the wild card round or something, because I personally want to be down on them. But just considering how bad that NFC West is, like I just can't fade them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And that's also why, when we go on here a little bit and do some more lofty predictions, I'm right there with you. Like, I want to be low on this Niners team. I want to pick my spots to fade them. However, the thing is with this Niners team, and I feel like it's been the story since Shanahan's been at the helm, is they're always just a healthy quarterback away. I mean, you look at that roster, it is absolutely stacked. And now you have a whole offseason if Christian McCaffrey's staying healthy, even just the other weapons that they have in the backfield. And then on the outside, a terrific wide receiver core where I don't think there's any clear-cut one. Sure, you got Deebo Samuel, you have Brandon Ayuk, but the beauty of this offense is that passing game is just meant to absolutely pick you apart in the mid-game, and they have guys who can break it and get so much yards after the carry or yards after the catch. So I want to fade that Niners team as an Eagles fan, and all the stuff we've had to hear from their fans about how the Eagles took them down and how, if Brock Purdy stayed healthy. Well, if Brock Purdy stayed healthy, then show us. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's why I can't quite fade them, because when Brock Purdy was playing, there was no film on him, but he was getting it done. He was what they needed out of Jimmy G. If he is that quarterback, this team is going to absolutely roll, and that's why I can't fade him. There's an unproven commodity with that quarterback under center, but they're so good everywhere else, and we haven't even mentioned the defense, that it's so hard for me to be down on the Niners going in, and that's why I kind of have to look at it the other way and be a little bit more bullish, I guess.
Yeah, no, I can't blame you. I am just in that kind of boat where once teams now have film on you, it makes your life a lot more difficult. And especially now coming off an elbow injury like Purdy had. When you throw things, you never want to hurt your throwing elbow. That's just pretty simple science right there. But guns ahead, wild card teams for the NFC. I have the Dallas Cowboys coming in as a wild card team. I have the Minnesota Vikings, who I think everybody is re-sleeping on, as a wild card team. And I'm so torn between Seattle because as we talked about ad nauseum on a different preview show, Geno Smith is primed for regression, but at the same time, the roster is good. And the Detroit Lions, because while I think that the hype is unwarranted, it still is a good roster. So again, we're making declarations here. I'm going to give the nod to Pete Carroll in Seattle. So again, my three wildcard teams, no particular order: Dallas Cowboys, Minnesota Vikings, Seattle Seahawks. Newbie, what are your three wildcard teams before we get into the postseason preview?
Yeah, and it's funny because the same teams you were mulling over, and I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about really being able to find who the top teams are and the different tiers that are in the NFC. I got the Cowboys, I got the Vikings, and then I did, even though I bashed them in our preview of the NFC North, I did give the Lions the nod because, wow, I'm not laying any juice for them to make the playoffs. I'm not laying any juice for them to win their division. I do think that while a lot of fans think they have some loftier goals, I think just getting into the playoffs, not having the heartbreak of the final week of the season and not getting in would be a decent feather in the cap for a Dan Campbell, who a lot of people think maybe shouldn't have even gotten the leash that he ended up getting. As far as the Vikings go, so many sharps are on them to regress simply because of all those coin flip games. And again, you can watch our preview videos. We get into this deeply, but the thing is the Vikings, even if let's say half of those coin flip games regress, they would still be a playoff team. They're not going to go 0-11 in the games that were 1-win games. And I think they have a great head coach. There wasn't much roster change. And as long as you have Justin Jefferson, I'm never going to fade that team. He is that good. He is that much of a game breaker. So as far as the Cowboys go, it defines it itself. It's going to be the Eagles and the Cowboys as players in the NFC East. And I think it's going to be a race to around 10 wins. 10 wins probably gets you into a wild card team if you don't win your division. So Cowboys, I think you have to bet them to at least make the playoffs via division, whether they usurp the Eagles or make it into the wild card. Both of those teams are going to be in the playoffs, I would say, barring something crazy.
Yeah, and completely agree with you. At this point in the NFC, 9-8 can certainly get you in, let alone 10. Maybe even an 8-9 season, considering the potential lack of quality in the NFC. So, shoot back to the postseason. Now, at this point, we have our field set. AFC winner. I'm going on a limb. I'm going balls to the wall. I have already expressed my love for this team. I have not bet the ticket, and it's not a ticket that I am going to be, that GoldSheet is going to be posting. Maybe if the team starts off slowly, I will get in at a crazy price just, to be able to maybe say I told you so at some point. But the Cleveland Browns I have coming out of the AFC. Now, as bullish as I am on the Browns, and just given the spark as to why, I think Stefanski is a great coach. I think what they've done to improve the defense and filling needs from not only just a personnel perspective, but also from a coaching perspective are massive. And just inarguably on paper, this is a top 10 roster in football. Obviously, football is played on grass and not on paper, so that does not necessarily mean anything is going to, come from that. But I am starting to have slight concerns about the culture, because when you have, they are supporting Cade York, and then they trade Cade York, and then they basically cut him and trade for another kicker. It's like you understood that now drafting a kicker in the 4th round was never a good decision, but now you're trading a 7th rounder for a kicker. That's still probably not a good decision. Obviously, the whole Deshaun Watson situation doesn't need to go into any more detail. And while I'm bullish on him because he's shown he's an elite quarterback, maybe his time has come because he didn't play for so long, and the fact that they did give him all that money and make that deal, maybe there is some resentment in that locker room. These are all things that are hard to quantify, but are completely could be real. And as we've seen from the Cleveland Browns from their history, anytime there is hype, they always are going to fail to live up to said hype, because of more so than what just happens on the field, because there are just overarching issues within the building. With that being said, again, no futures plays, nothing going on, but I am taking the Browns to win the AFC if I had to make a decision. Newbie, who do you have winning the AFC this season?
Man, it's just something about that division, I guess, because now Lamar Jackson is back. I know that this is a team that you don't even like a little bit. It's the Baltimore Ravens for me. I think if they can shore up and come back to form on what they do defensively, I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And again, I think getting rid of Greg Roman was the best thing this team could have done, because now Lamar Jackson's legs won't be the first look in the offense. I think they're going to let him pass a little bit more. Now, I'm excited that he's still going to be passing to like a 75-year-old Odell Beckham Jr. No, don't get me wrong, but I think there's a Zay Flowers potential. I think that, you could see a reemergence for Rashad Bateman. And, while I don't think it'll happen, could Odell Beckham Jr. still have a little bit of something left in the tank? Maybe, but I just think that this team always is going to have a steady hand with what they do from a coaching perspective. Having the change of the offensive coordinator is great. And I think a reason why we're kind of bullish on the Browns and the Ravens is because this division is a battle-tested division. It's always tease up whoever the dog is whenever these teams face off against each other. So, look at the schedule of the Ravens. They're going to have some tough games throughout the year, so they will be playing some playoff quality opponents. And whenever the Ravens come off a down year, I always feel like they're primed to have a bounce back. So again, nothing that I'm going to be placing, and I hate making these type of predictions, but early on for me, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw the Ravens coming out of the AFC, maybe a surprising take to some.
Yeah, I mean, my bearishness on the Ravens is more so about the quality around them. Like, I think that what they've done to improve their wide receiver room, they probably have the most improved wide receiver room of any like positional group outside of what I think the Browns did to their defensive line, which is saying something. And obviously they bring in this new system that, if it works out perfectly, they Bateman, Flowers, I guess Odell, obviously Mark Andrews could get this team going, but time will tell. I'm out here talking about the Browns winning the AFC, so if anybody's crazy, you can definitely me. But moving to the NFL, so obviously I have the Browns representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. Newbie has the Ravens. I'm going Birds, man. I'm going back to your Philadelphia Eagles to make another run to the Super Bowl. I know it's not something that happens very frequently, a team losing and then coming back to win the next season. So much talk was made about the Eagles-Gonzaga schedule last season. They played they played bad teams all year long, but they still ended up in the dance. And, you can't control who you play, so you can't really fully be a knock on them. And while the schedule is going to get more difficult this year, while maybe teams have more understanding of Jalen Hurts and what they're going to do, this is still the same loaded total roster, if not even better at this point. If Jalen Carter is what I anticipate Jalen Carter being, I thought he was the number one player in the draft, bar none, even considering Bryce Young being, a quarterback. That is just, you can't, adding to that defensive line they already had. I know you lose Hargrave, it's kind of like a replacement. You have Jordan Davis hopefully taking a step. You have like your guys, Hassan Reddick. I know that they did a lot to maintain their cornerback group. They have some new safeties, but I'm not concerned about any regression defensively. I think this unit on defense should be just as good as last year. Then same thing on offense. Like Miles Sanders going away doesn't mean anything to me. Like I thought Kenny Gainwell, his ability to be more of a weapon, and then considering they add DeAndre Swift, who when healthy is an absolute animal. Deonta Foreman, when healthy, is an animal. Like you still have Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown on the outside, of course, big Dallas Goedert, and one of the best offensive lines in football. So considering, again, how we've talked about ad nauseum how weak the NFC is, I'm just simply taking the best team in the NFC. Again, no futures plays because at this price, there's really no value. I don't want to be betting any futures at 3-1 for a team to win the NFC. But I'm rocking with your Birds. I don't even hate to say it because as a Commanders fan, I just am a realist. The Birds are a hell of a football team, and I think they get back to the Super Bowl and they beat the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to go and just say my prediction right there. I have Eagles, Browns in the Super Bowl. Eagles over Browns. Newbie, finish us off. What you got in the NFC? How you think the Super Bowl shakes out?
I mean, I don't want to say anything else. I just want to agree with you. I want to say, let's ride. Let's go Birds. I'm looking around this offense and all the Eagles memorabilia that I have in here is definitely getting me excited for sure. But the thing is for me is I couldn't just ride with the Eagles, and simply because, again, I think a lot of what you said, I completely agree with. And I also think that there's an added motivation for the Eagles where a lot of times you'll say, oh, well, now they have a first place schedule. You think about the competitor that Jalen Hurts is. I think that this locker room is now happy that they have a tougher schedule because now they can prove the naysayers wrong who said the only reason you were there was the cupcake schedule. So not only do they have the motivation of being an NFL team going for the ultimate prize, they have all these people telling them that they didn't deserve to be there last year. And when you have a leader like Jalen Hurts, they call him the thermostat because he doesn't affect he doesn't go by what the temperature is. He sets the temperature. So he's setting the temperature that, guys, we have a chip on our shoulder despite the fact that we won the NFC last year. However, a team that they gave a chip on their shoulder is who I have representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. It's the 49ers, and I won't belabor the point. If Brock Purdy is who apparently people think he is, I don't. But hey, who knows? I've been wrong before. So if Brock Purdy is who the people think he is, this team is just going to be an absolute brutal team to face. If he's able to possess the clock, take 7-minute drives, and then you're going up against the brick wall that is this Niners defense, I just think they're going to be an extremely tough team to face. The Eagles, again, they gave them plenty of ammo for the next time that they play them to have even more of that revenge factor that gets overrated in the NFL. But Kyle Shanahan's a guy who can kind of have his finger on the trigger of that. I think this Niners team is loaded up. And again, if the quarterback play can even be serviceable, they're going to be a tough team to out simply because of how they're constructed. So I guess I'll take the Niners over the Ravens in this hypothetical. But I'll tell you what, Eric, I like yours a lot more. I want the way that you broke it down to play itself out. I would love to see the Birds hoisting that Lombardi again. But all in fun, I want to know what people think. Hop below in the comments. Number one, tell us how wrong we are. But also, I want to know who your Super Bowl teams are. And then we'll circle back to the comments and we'll see who's right at the end of the year. But this was a fun one, man.
Very fun. Give us all of them. Give us all the smoke. I want every single division.
Yes.
I want to know where you agree and disagree. Both of us are on the Tennessee Titans, and I am literally on the Jacksonville Jaguars not to make the playoffs. I know there's somebody out there who disagrees with me, so let me hear it. And I look forward to sweating that all season long with you. But moving forward, the schedule upcoming, probably going to do some college football on Thursday, and then next Tuesday, it's here. The NFL previews, I should say, are here because Thursday, and a week from Thursday, is the actual first game of the season. So Newbie and I will, of course, start focusing in more on what is going on, betting information, angles, and plays that are actionable and pertinent for these games that are going to be coming, and we cannot wait. For more information on anything GoldSheet related, GoldSheet.com. Week 0 for college football has already obviously happened. That's up. But week 1 will be up shortly. And, of course, week 1 for the NFL will be available for you guys next Tuesday around this time. So, or at the time of recording, so around 12 ET. So be prepared for that. And again, all picks for the GoldSheet, the LTS pick service that used to be on GoldSheet.com, same exact service, now on WagerTalk.com under the GoldSheet Expert tab. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Best of luck. And again, let us know where we are wrong in these division previews. Liking this video and subscribing to the channel, best way to support us and help us grow. We appreciate you guys. See you guys next time.